one of your hosts, Kyle Wiseman, and
I'm your other host, Zachary Rossiter, and today we're going to be trying something a little bit different. We're not going to be doing it on camera. We're actually doing it off camera because of our
we're in
schedules.
different locations.
Yeah, our schedules are conflicting with each other.
But we still want to get an episode out and hear your opinions as well as what you think of our own.
We're going to start with the top 5 best Fox movies in light of the fact that Fox is being sold to either Comcast or Marvel. They're still bidding over it, having a war, so we don't know who it's going to yet. But a lot of people think it is going to go to Disney. But in light of that, we are going to be doing our favorite superhero movies and our least favorite superhero movies that Fox has created, kind of as a reminiscing. I'm sure we both have a lot of things to say, especially about the worst.
Oh my god.
All right, so we'll start with the best, and we'll just jump right into it. I'll take the reins this time.
Well, we're doing a countdown: 5, 4,
Yeah.
3, 2, 1.
I'll take the reins this time, and I'll start. My number 5 best. Before we start, actually, let me establish this isn't just Fox movies. This is co-produced Fox movies. So movies like Daredevil and the original Fantastic Four movies they can also be used.
But we are not including Kingsman. I think
Or
we agreed on that.
Yeah, and we're also not. I'm not going to. I'm not sure about Kyle, but I'm not going to
either,
include
no.
Elektra because I haven't watched that since I was younger, and I don't even think I finished it when I watched it back then. So that probably would have made the list, but I'm not even going to bring it up. So
Elektra reaches a list of its fucking own, man. It's so horrible that it doesn't.
it's like at the level of Catwoman.
Yeah, it's the unmentionable kind of list where you just pretend it was never created. That's how bad it is.
Yeah. All right. So I'll start.
Here, come on, Shiva, come on, girl, go girl, get up.
That's his dog. So my number 5 is going to be. I'm not sure if you're the same, Kyle. If you are, you can bring it up. But also, it's when we get down to around 2 and 1. I think we're probably going to be in the same area. So maybe we'll skip our second one, just go right to the first one. So if my feeling is correct, my number 2 is your number 1, and your number 2 is my number 1. So
okay.
We'll just skip number 2, I think, and we'll go right to 1. So my number 5 is X-Men Apocalypse. I thought this movie was really underrated, and it kind of was the opposite for Logan for me.
I think when you state this movie, I feel like you just have to wait for all that backlash.
Oh yeah,
you have to listen to all the fans crying out in anger, smacking their monitors and shit.
I open up my blinds, I just see a bunch of pitchforks outside my window. I'm like, oh my god,
Get that, Susie!
they busted. All right.
Okay.
So, X-Men Apocalypse. This movie is so underrated. The 80s vibe. I thought
I agree.
Oscar Isaac did probably the best you can do with Apocalypse. Apocalypse is a pretty standard villain. Only thing I think that they didn't do very well with Apocalypse was his powers. And I was still fine with it. It looked cool. It would have been cooler to see more mechanical things, more things of that
I like his
nature.
powers, actually. If there's anything wrong with them, personally, I wasn't a fan of his eyes, like the way they did. I just think because you know when he's like using his primary powers and his eyes turn white.
Yeah, it's a bit cliche, but I didn't mind it.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
But I did enjoy the costume and stuff.
I did too, actually, and a lot of people were really upset by it. But I mean, like, if you're taking, he's basically
The original Apocalypse is so fucking cheesy.
and you're taking this like. I was looking at it from like a cinema version of this character, and he's an Egyptian technological based mutant. And when I looked at him, I was like, that's spot on for the real world. That's what the Egyptians dressed like and stuff, right? So I was like, that's spot on. Like there was a lot of influence pulled from that culture. Yeah, X-Men Apocalypse was great. I loved the action scenes. The ending left me a little bit wary because of my favorite X-Men storyline.
Sure, they've already announced the Dark Phoenix, so it's probably
Yeah,
not
yeah.
right for
People,
us to talk
it's not
about
really
it.
spoiler territory.
No.
Yeah, the Phoenix storyline is my favorite X-Men storyline. Uh, in fact, if you could see me now, you'd see that I'm wearing my X-Men shirt. uh, the
Nerd.
But no,
I can't really say much.
X-Men's your favorite comic book story.
I don't know what you're talking about. That doesn't sound like me.
Here, let me just shift my position. But yeah, I liked the action. I thought it was a bit. The pacing was not as good as its two predecessors.
It was a little off, and I think you can agree with me in stating that it, in a lot of ways, it's kind of like Star Wars Episode 7. It retreads on ground that we've seen before
Yeah.
in Days of Future Past.
But I still enjoyed it. The biggest fault, actually, the biggest fault with X-Men Apocalypse is the focus on Mystique. I hate,
Well,
and it's not even fully on Mystique, but just like they're really digging into Jennifer Lawrence playing Mystique.
and Jennifer Lawrence isn't even a good actress.
I knew that was coming. Yeah, she's not like great. She's not as high as she's held. Like she's not bad. She's not horrible, but there's definitely better out there.
Like, you don't just hire her because she's hot. You hire someone that can actually act well. And I haven't seen a single role that I was like, wow, that's grade A.
Apparently, Mother is supposed to be really controversial. Where people either love it or they hate it, but they say she did amazing in it. So
Okay.
it's on Netflix.
That's a newer one, right?
Yeah, it's kind of new. It's on Netflix. I've been meaning to check it out, but I just haven't been in the mood for it. So yeah, before I'm not gonna drag this on any longer. I'm just gonna state real quick. X-Men Apocalypse was really underrated. Had some really cool action. Some of the like some really intense action scenes. Had some really cool costumes. It gave me what I want out of a superhero movie. It didn't really break the boundaries of superhero movies and go beyond, but it was better than a lot of the other garbage that Fox has given us, like Logan.
And I did enjoy Angel more than...
Yeah, you just liked him because he was 80s as fuck. He might as well have just had Judas Priest blaring in the background.
I don't know what you're talking about. And Psylocke was... Introducing Psylocke for the first... Oh, Jesus Christ. Sorry, guys.
Olivia, what's her last name?
Olivia Munn.
Yeah, she's...
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, she's pretty fucking hot. So yeah, that's my number 5, and I'll let you go to your number 5.
Mine... I actually had to think about this, because X-Men Apocalypse was... It didn't make my best. It didn't make my top 5.
No. I didn't think it would, but I knew it was probably a runner-up.
Yeah. Deadpool 2. Even more so than the first film.
I'm just going to state now, Deadpool 2 is my number 3. So...
Really?
Yeah. So when we get to Deadpool 2, that's... Yeah, man, I'm not, like, crazy into a lot of the Fox movies. But yeah, we'll just skip my number 3, since we're probably going to get a lot of Deadpool 2.
Okay.
The shit here now. So, alright, go on.
So, in Deadpool 2, I remember seeing the trailer and I was like, damn, this movie's gonna suck. It's gonna suck.
I was the same. I was the exact same. I thought it was going to be a complete bomb of a movie.
And I will admit there are a ton of jokes that do not land. Whereas, like, I feel like generally every attempt at humor in the first Deadpool did land. But the second one, honestly, the laughs have a lot more punch here.
The ones
Like,
that do land.
The ones that do land, yeah. And there's a lot more jokes here, even even though a lot of them are cringeworthy, like there's still a lot of jokes to laugh at
It's
because
had some of the best comedy I've seen in comic book movies, especially
yeah,
during that
oh,
midsection. I was dying, and I will
the
state this:
ending,
yeah,
the
the
ending
after
too.
credit scene in Deadpool 2 is my favorite after credit scene of any superhero movie. It was absolutely amazing. I'm so happy that they got that Fox was like, yeah, man, dude, poke fun at us. I'm so happy that they were allowed to do that. It makes me sad that
Um,
Fox is losing basically their company to these mega giant companies now because like
yeah.
it just makes me like look like they were starting to gain some traction, right? They just
Well,
couldn't keep
sure.
up.
I was looking at the list of like all these Fox movies. Apparently, they have a whole bunch of films in the works. They have a Gambit one.
They had Gambit. They had the kids one. I can't remember. New Mutants. Um, the
They have an
Phoenix
X
movie.
23,
Yeah, X-23. They had a few in the works. Gambit
and
was going to be played by Channing Tatum, though. I know you wouldn't have been a fan of that.
oh my god, that ugly cotton flowered eared bastard.
I actually think he's good in comedy. I'm not a fan of him whatsoever in action, though.
Sorry, cauliflower. But he's got those fucking giant ears that stick out of his head like Dumbo.
All right, so why'd you like Deadpool 2, other than the comedy? That
Um,
did.
Personally, from a scripting perspective, it see the first Deadpool was just your run of the mill, gotta save the girl kind of script and get revenge on who did this to me. And I was like, well, we've seen this before in Logan and X2. I think X2 is like the primary film that was like, how do I get revenge on who created me as a mutant, right?
Yeah.
Like Deadpool was just going through the exact same motions of those two films. But this in Deadpool 2, we actually have more of an interesting story
Yeah,
in which,
I liked the arc with the kid. I thought that the
yeah,
whole plot line with the kid was pretty good.
and they took it right from the comics in terms of Cable's storyline. Like when
Yeah.
Cable was announced as a villain, I was like, I hope it's not a villain and it's more of like,
Anti-hero?
okay, anti-hero. Yeah, I don't mean to. I don't want to like reveal any spoilers on the film itself, but there's a reason. There, there's a method for his madness, basically,
And
and it's actually done really well.
that's another thing I liked about this movie a lot, is the cast. I think that this movie had a lot better of a cast than Deadpool 1.
Oh, it did, yeah.
Yeah.
And I also really enjoyed.
Like, what was the villain in
Fuck,
Deadpool 1? It was like Ajax or something.
he
He
was
was
just boring.
yeah, he was like the most cliche. But Deadpool poked fun at that during the movie,
Yeah,
which was funny. But he was just such a cliche villain, right? But back on Deadpool 2, there's also I'm not gonna say who, but there's a special X-Men character that comes during near the end, and it was just like it was such a nice cherry, you know.
yeah.
Oh, like this without giving away too much. The CGI was a little bit not the greatest. It wasn't bad, but it wasn't perfect. It wasn't like Thanos, you know.
Yeah.
But it was fucking awesome. It was like, I don't know, just being a kid growing up reading these comics, seeing that on the big screen, it's just like there it is. That's all I needed, right?
Yeah.
Anything else?
And it was a character who was, we forgot to mention, it's a character who was done justice compared to his first appearance. Oh
Alright.
my god.
Yeah. Yeah, I can
But
completely agree with that.
um, I really liked X Force as well. Because X Force are kind of like
Well, they were one of your favorite
Division.
comics growing up, right?
I liked X Force. X Factor I like even more.
Yeah.
But X Force have like uh, similar objectives as X Factor compared to X Men. X Men are like, humans versus mutant, but X Force and X Factor are usually dealing with more troubling nature
Hmm.
of like mutant versus mutant. Honestly, so I actually really do like X Force and X Factor, and to have them in a Deadpool film, and now to have an X Force film in the works as well as a Deadpool 3, I just think Deadpool 2 left me with a good taste in my mouth.
What'd you just say?
Ryan. Wait!
Ryan Reynolds would make a joke about that if he was here right now.
Yeah, I know. A little bit salty, but quite sweet.
Ooh, you like that, do you? But no, yeah, it was a better movie.
It left
than the
me
first
hopeful
one.
for the future.
Yeah, I agree, and I want to see more of Cable.
Yes.
I definitely want to see
Josh
more.
Brolin was awesome. I don't even think you have to state that, though. Like, Josh Brolin
He's a great
in that
actor.
cast. Yeah. And Domino. I think Domino was also, like, surprisingly,
she was one of the biggest surprising factors to me. In fact, I think when we left theaters, I even looked at you and I was like, she was one of my favorite things about the movie. Easily.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to add?
No, it's just good special effects, good script. Yeah, some jokes didn't land, but it was still quite hilarious. And I thought the casting was a lot better too. So it's just all around a far superior sequel. Well, not far superior, but it was a superior sequel to Deadpool.
It was superior. But I think you probably like Deadpool 2 a little bit more than me, but I think that they're, like, really close, but Deadpool 2 it gets just a little bit above.
Yeah.
Alright, so my number 4, we already stated my number 3 was Deadpool 2, and my number 4 is Deadpool 1. I think we basically just went over a lot of things about Deadpool that we liked and we didn't like. It was just, it was a nice surprise, and I didn't really know much about the Deadpool character going into that movie. I knew a little bit about him, like I knew his premise that he broke the fourth wall, stuff like that. But that movie, I think when we went to theaters, me, you, and Nicholas, when me, you, and Nick went to theaters, I was probably laughing the most out of all of us.
Yeah.
I probably liked it the most out of all of us. I liked the gore.
There was a lot of immature humor, though.
Yeah, but that is me. And there was a lot of, like, shock humor, and that's more me, too. I just feel like the jokes, like you said with Deadpool 2, the jokes that did landed way better.
Yeah.
But I still liked Deadpool 1 a lot. There was a lot of sex humor, a lot of shock humor, a lot of gore. And it was really in your face, and that's kind of one thing that can draw me into a movie quite easily.
We had to remember with... sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, but we had to remember with Deadpool that it was the first big risk that Fox ever took in terms of superhero films. You have the introduction of a lot of gore, and you have the introduction of fourth wall breaking, neither of which...
I may be wrong in this, but I think it is the highest grossing R-rated movie of all time.
Really?
And I think it like way went beyond expectations, and they even gave it a really small budget for a superhero movie anyway.
Jeez.
It was almost the thing that saved Fox. Let's just say that it almost saved Fox. Deadpool 1. It just couldn't. Once they started making New Mutants, because I'm pretty sure they got a new director on New Mutants and everything. I think when they had the first... Because New Mutants was supposed to come out early this year. And I think when they made the first draft of it, or the first rough of the movie, without all the CGI and stuff, and probably just like some storyboards and stuff, I'm pretty sure that the people at the top hated it. And I'm pretty sure the same was for the Phoenix, and I think that's what kind of scared them and shit, and that's what's been causing a lot of problems. I could be wrong on that, but Deadpool 1 almost saved Fox. And they almost started, like, reconsidering... It has, even though Fox is falling into, like... is basically about to crumble and have to whore itself out to Disney. Bend over and take it.
That's right, little fuck bitch.
It has changed the way superhero movies, and a lot, even just R-rated movies in general, will be looked at in the future. Like, producers only really care about money, and they're going to look at this in the future and say, we can make money this way, we just got to be smart about it. So I do tip my hat to Deadpool for that.
I was just going to give overall praise to Fox itself, because the MCU pretty much releases the exact same movie annually. Let's be honest there.
Yeah,
But,
with the obviously there's a few little changes
yeah,
and stuff, but yeah,
and then DC,
they play close to the chest.
DC generally also plays like very safe with their films, trying to replicate off the success of the MCU. Fox is the only.
Well, lately I think DC was ambitious, but I think Batman v Superman made them reconsider how ambitious.
Oh my god, we just released the shittiest movie of all time.
Shut
What
up,
do we do?
We'll get to DC after Fox. All right.
But yes, Fox is as a company took several risks in how they handled superhero films, and I'm not saying it always was successful, but I enjoy like how their stories actually feel different.
I agree.
Like
I think Fox has been one to take a few more risks and stuff, but unfortunately, it has also created a lot of bombs for them, which is why they're inevitably falling. A sad story. Anyway, so no, I think that's we touched a lot on Deadpool 1 when we talked about Deadpool 2. So yeah, it was just it wasn't as good as Deadpool 2, but it was close for me. For a lot of the same reasons, a few different reasons. All right, so your number 4, Kyle?
X2, X-Men United.
I knew this was coming at some point.
Yeah.
Oh,
go on. X2 was the first superhero film that was written incredibly well.
I'll give it that. It was the one that made people. Spider-Man 2 was the movie that made people realize that superhero movies. Well, no, I'd say Spider-Man 1 was the first movie that made producers realize these can make a lot of money. Then X-Men 2 was the very first movie that said, oh, superhero movies can actually not be cliche and have good scripts. And then Spider-Man 2 was the one that made people go, oh, superhero movies can be great. But yeah, I do think X-Men 2 was the very first movie that made people realize they don't have to be these cliche, run-of-the-mill, same story superhero movies.
And it's a film that holds up after so many years.
I disagree, though.
So much.
I honestly I had a hard time watching it last time I watched it.
Okay, well, to each their own. I think it upholds like a lot of scrutiny, particularly with the mutants versus human message. Like thematically, it's more relevant today than it ever has been.
Well, X-Men has been. It's more relevant today, because of social media and how everybody's attacking each other for everything. But I think since
not just
the
about
60s,
racism,
I think even just since like the 60s, the 1960s, X-Men is probably on a political political statement. It's probably the most relevant out of all the superhero stories.
Yeah. Also, I enjoy the plot line. We had a great villain this time around with Brian Cox. I'm not saying that Ian McKellen wasn't a great Magneto, because he was. He was a fantastic Magneto.
He's amazing as Magneto.
But I didn't think Magneto was an interesting villain in the first film, because X-Men was young. It was a kind of boring film, for being honest.
It's not going to make either of my lists.
No. It's so boring it doesn't deserve to be in the top 5 or the worst 5. But X2 just, from a director standpoint, from a scripting standpoint, and you have to admit it, I think the setup for the Dark Phoenix in X2 was so much cooler than it was in X-Men Apocalypse.
We'll talk about that when we get to our worst ones.
Yeah. Great direction, particularly Mystique. I think it's Mystique's best character development and most intriguing part of her story. But just overall, it's a lot of superheroes, a lot of villains, some good penmanship between them, and then Who are the true villains?
we got some cool
Humans or
things out of
mutants?
X-Men 2, like some like not important, but some like little just like extras. Like we got our first look at Colossus in X-Men 2.
Nightcrawler.
Nightcrawler, yeah. Nightcrawler was awesome in X-Men 2 though. That's one thing that no matter how many times how bored I get of some of the stuff in X-Men 2, I'll never get bored of the Nightcrawler fight scenes. Especially the
I still really enjoy the fight scene between Wolverine and fuck, what was Mrs. with the Nails name?
Oh,
It's like something strike.
I'm just so bored of all these like, and I know X-Men 2 was the very first one to it, so it shouldn't fall into this category. But I'm so bored of all the different versions of Wolverine. It's just like, okay, we get it. You like Wolverine, Fox. That's one area they don't play safe to the chat. Like that's one area they don't break bounds on. They're very play safe. They play very safe to the chest when it comes to Wolverine, or at least they did before Hugh Jackman was like peace.
I also think the visuals still hold up. Like the CGI obviously would show some dated parts, but
can't be worse than Origins. CGI. Okay, we'll get to
But the visuals of X2 just I find they still hold up. So that's why I posted it as my number 4.
So yeah, you done? Or anything else to add?
Yeah.
I'm not. It wasn't in my top 5, and it's also not in my top 5 worst. So, yeah, I don't really have anything else to say on it. We already did my number 3 with Deadpool 2, so you're just gonna jump right into your number 3.
Okay, so my number 3, Zack's definitely not going to agree with this one. Logan.
No.
I actually thought it from a scripting perspective,
I couldn't even finish it the second time I tried to watch it. So I was like, I'll rewatch it. I'll rewatch it. I'll give it another chance, and maybe I'll buy it when it's on sale. I was like, this might be the very first. And I've purchased X-Men Origins. Okay. So, this might be the very first X-Men movie I don't purchase.
Zack, you are just like...
Go.
He's got Batman v Superman in his collection, but he won't pick up Logan.
Alright, go on, Kyle. Why do you like Logan?
And he's also got Guardians Volume 2.
I don't have Guardians Volume 2 yet.
Okay, but he wants it.
I will get it, yeah. I probably will get Logan, in all honesty, just to complete the collection, but...
Logan is the best Wolverine film we've gotten from... Now, this is probably not going to sound that good, because otherwise we just have the Wolverine and X-Men Origins Wolverine. But it's actually one of the best X-Men films we've ever gotten as well. You want to die?
Most people would agree with you, though.
Logan is scripted well. It was the first film that Fox took with an already existing character, like Wolverine, and made it bloody and violent.
That's the only thing that I, like, can praise about it, man, is the violence. Because I was like, okay, that's what Wolverine needs. Wolverine needs to have that. It's about time he's gotten that. It's only taken, like,
This is a character who's a fucking animal, and he rips people's heads off. Of course you need Of course you need blood and gore and like, body parts going flying.
I've always liked Hugh Jackman as Wolverine, and I like his interpretation of him. But that is not who I see as Wolverine. I don't regret getting it, and I still think he was an amazing Wolverine. But I really hope that they pick a stockier, shorter guy as the next Wolverine, who is just a beast. Like he's literally just got to be rage. That's what Wolverine is. Just he's a fucking muscle of rage. That's all he is.
Well, I like the fact that they tried to turn him into more of a human, if you will.
Yeah, let's make him tall and muscular. Because that hasn't been done in cinema before.
But he's also quite emotional for Wolverine.
At times. But I thought... I'll give Hugh Jackman this. He gave one hell of a performance in Logan. And same with Ian... Or not Ian, sorry. Charles. Who played Charles? And what's
Patrick Stewart.
Patrick Stewart, that's his name. Patrick Stewart gave one hell of a performance as well.
He was funny. He was freaking funny in Logan,
but
man.
like, I was there. I'm bored when I watch Logan. I get really bored. It moves at a snail's pace,
I don't
and
agree.
the action scenes are good, but they don't really last. And there are some giant flaws in the script that I snark at when I watch it.
Are you talking about
The ending, for
the
one. Spoiler warning.
the side villain, basically?
Well, that
Of
too.
who?
I laughed when fucking another Wolverine. Literally, it was just Hugh Jackman, but he's younger. Another Wolverine shows up, and he's his younger self, and he fights, and I was like, oh my god, because they were like, "There's a secret weapon." I'm like, who the fuck is this secret weapon? Is it gonna be like Mr. Sinister? Is it gonna be Omega Red? Like, who are we getting? Who am I finally gonna get to? Oh, it's just another Wolverine. Like,
Okay, for one, that's stripped right from the comics, and for two, Batman v Superman. You like that concept?
no, you don't get to distract away. We're not talking about that right now. We'll get to that later. We're talking
Yeah,
about Logan
okay.
right now. And that, okay, so for one, I'm just sick of seeing Wolverine being done over and over and over and over. Just like the Joker. I'm sick of seeing Joker being done over and over and over and over.
Yeah, I can agree with that.
And the ending for Logan. Do you remember? We went in theaters. I laughed when she turned that fucking cross into an X. Because, spoiler warning, he dies. And, I mean, like, everybody knows that by now. But
I thought it was
she got the cross there. She takes it out, she plants it down like an X. It was the cheesiest thing I've ever seen in my life. I was like, no, don't do that.
okay. It's cheesy, but personally, when you look past the scene as a whole, or that image, sorry, that shot, I think it's a great send off for Wolverine. It shows like an extinction level event of the last few mutants that exist, basically. And it shows the dangers of genetic engineering, genetically modifying genes,
I guess.
which is still, I would say, is incredibly relevant because right now the obsession is
It's still cheesy to me.
can I have a child who has like genetically modified genes to be like the perfect child, right? And
I did
Yeah.
like the kid though, even though it was still just another copy of Wolverine.
X-23 was really well
She
done.
was cool and she was like jumping.
Yeah.
And she was a better. She was more like
She
the
was a
original
fucking
Wolverine than he
badass.
was.
Yeah.
She was savage, man. She was like a rabid
Yeah.
animal, and that's what Wolverine is, a rabid animal. Anything else?
But from a scripting standpoint, the way it was directed, I liked a lot of the cinematography, particularly when they get closer to this paradise that they're searching for.
I was out by the paradise searching part, man. I was out of that movie.
Okay. And once again, we are kind of in the fourth wall, which I did like a reference to, because we get an introduction to the X-Men comic book, which was never seen in any previous X-Men film. Well, Deadpool, if you can count that as an X-Men film.
It's
But-
an X-Men film, but it's Deadpool is its own entity as well.
Yeah. Logan was the first film to acknowledge, there's a difference between comics and what's going on in reality.
Yeah.
Mutants are not how you...
I think Man of Steel did a good job with that too,
We could,
showing the difference between what people want Superman to be, wanted Superman to be, and what would actually
Yeah.
happen if that kind of being was on our Earth. Right. But I can see why people like Logan.
Well, for
It's
me,
like-
it just had some powerful emotional moments.
It gave...
No.
Sorry, continue.
It just had some powerful emotional moments with the end of the mutant kind. If anything, this is worse than the post-apocalypse we saw with the Sentinels and in Days of Future Past. This is where mutants are pretty much extinct, but humans are thriving. And they're creating mutants as weapons. That's fucked.
It did something for X-Men that needed to be done. It took it back and slowed it down and dramatized it a little, which was needed, and it gave it turned it into a graphic novel as opposed to a comic. I guess you could say.
It was the first realistic
But
X-Men
I think
film.
it just went a little too far. It almost felt too much like an indie film to me. And I was
Okay.
bored. Like, I was bored through a lot of it. I felt like there were sections that could have been cut out. And, like, I think I probably would have liked the ending a little bit more if that whole midsection part with his clone killing that family and stuff. And I don't know. It was too slow. I wasn't really into some of the action. I thought the beginning of the movie was alright. I liked the beginning of the movie more than the end.
All
And
right.
you know how the endings of movies are more important to me.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It never hit the mark for me, but I can see why people like it. I don't think it's fair when people compare it to The Dark Knight though. And people do it all the time. They're like, that's Fox's Dark Knight. I'm like, you shut the fuck up.
The Dark Knight's better. Sorry, guys. The Dark Knight is better.
That is not The Dark Knight. You don't get to say that. Alright.
Okay, let's move on to number 2.
I guess I'll go now. Or no, we're gonna skip our number 2, so I'll go right to my number 1, because yeah, it was just as I thought. So my number 2, I can already guess, is gonna be Kyle's number 1, and my number 1 is gonna be his number 2. Am I correct, Kyle? My number 1 is Days of Future Past.
Yeah, that's my number 2.
Days of Future Past is an X-Men movie. That is what I want. And when I don't say an X-Men comic, I mean an X-Men movie. This is what I think the perfect adaptation of an X-Men movie should be.
Adaptation?
Yeah.
You mean?
Yeah, sorry. That is the
Uh,
perfect adaptation to movie, in my opinion.
I agree, because if you look at the original Sentinels, and they do kind of hint at this in earlier X-Men films. They're fucking cheesy.
Yeah, they are cheesy. And there are a lot of things that are cheesy about X-Men. Oh. Okay, this is completely... Okay, I should have stated this. This is just a real quick thing, because no other movies have done it. I was just thinking, the suits in Days of Future Past are awesome, but I'm just going to say this real quick. The suits at the end of Apocalypse, oh my god. That makes me excited for the next movie.
They're closer to the original
Oh,
comics,
it looks just like
yeah.
the 90s comics. Looks just like what shirt I'm wearing right now. Literally like goosebumps in theaters. Anyway, so back to Days of Future Past. Days of Future Past is not only the best X-Men movie of all time, in my opinion, it's one of the best superhero movies of all time. I think it does deserve grounds with movies like The Dark Knight.
Okay, that's where we disagree.
It is what Avengers Infinity War was to Marvel, Days of Future Past was... Because it's still a team-up movie, but that's what that was to X-Men for me.
Actually, I think that's a better comparison. 'Cause it's more of your Avengers Infinity
Yeah,
War
it's
than it
a
is, like,
team-up
the
movie,
Dark
but that's how
Knight.
I always looked at the X-Men. And I know that's why you're
Oh.
going to choose your number 1, because you like a more personal touch.
Days of Future Past, I'm going to say this. It's probably has the best action scenes out of any superhero film we've ever gotten.
Yes,
like,
I agree.
And that's
I was on the
that
edge
is
of my
saying
seat the
something.
entire movie. And every action
was-
scene made me so happy. And I literally almost cried at the end of that movie because it fixed so many of the mistakes that they had made before.
Yeah, they literally erase the past, Days of Future Past. They literally erase like the past trilogy of X-Men films.
Proper thing. There are certain moments I have in theaters, though, with certain movies. Avengers did it for me the first time I saw it, even though I've grown to not like it as much. But in theaters...
Avengers!
In theaters, though, that was like... It was because we'd never seen a team-up movie done like that before, right? Like, we've had X-Men movies, but that was the very first blockbuster team-up superhero movie.
Joss Whedon at his worst.
Spider-Man 2, in theaters, that was also a movie that made me sit back and be like, just, as a kid, I was just like, blown away by how amazing that was. So another thing, which surprisingly, because it didn't make my list, X-Men 2 at the very ending when they teased the Dark Phoenix. Because
Yeah,
the Dark Phoenix is my favorite storyline. I almost cried when they teased that at the end of X-Men 2. I went nuts. I remember, like, just, like, shaking in my seat and, like, just smiling at my mom, like, they're gonna fucking do it! Little did I know. They would crush my dreams.
Guys, how do we take the Dark Phoenix storyline and turn it into shit?
You see that kid's face? You see that smile, that enthusiasm? I want to wipe it off.
We
his
don't
fucking
want
face.
that.
But yeah, so Days of Future Past was also a moment. I don't know. There's just this feeling you get when you watch, like the Dark Knight did it too. It was a little bit different. It was more like when I seen the Dark Knight in theaters, I was like, that is creepy,
Yeah.
right? But there's just certain as a fan of comic books, and we grew up reading comics. There's just certain moments in certain movies that, like, you feel like it's been done justice. I feel like that's a good way to put it. You feel like they've done it justice.
Yeah.
They've done
They-
what they should have been doing. And Days of Future Past did that.
I would call it a big risk taker in its own way. Like, in terms of dealing with the old X-Men trilogy material
Yep.
and being willing to kill off superheroes, even if it
yeah.
is from a time perspective. I thought that was so
That
cool.
intro, spoiler warning, people have already seen Days of Future Past. That intro when they just
A couple-
kill Iceman,
Well,
like they
yeah,
rip Colossus'
oh my
arms
god!
off.
When I saw his head rolling on the floor, I was like,
He's dead.
I can't believe it! They killed that awful character!
And so the greatness began.
But they introduced Bishop. Who was that fucking sexy Asian chick, man? Damn.
Crap.
Blink?
Blink, yeah, that's her name.
Was-
Yeah.
Man,
she
she's-
like opens up.
And she had a really cool power.
Yeah, she opens up
Her and
like,
Bishop.
portals or something that people can
Yeah, like
can teleport through or something.
and they utilize like the most of Kitty Pryde's power.
Yeah,
It's
and
just
that's
like,
she's also like, I don't know. For all the X-Men fans out there, you'll know this, but for all the kids out there who didn't grow up with like the '90s cartoons or the comics and stuff, Kitty's a pretty important character. She was. Same with Jubilee. Actually, Jubilee never got much screen time or anything for how important she was, especially in the '90s cartoon. But there's certain characters that I feel like certain X-Men that just haven't been done justice, and that's another reason that pisses me off about Wolverine is that Wolverine gets all the fucking spotlight, right? Like Kitty, I like that they gave Kitty the right amount of focus in that movie, right? Same with X-Men. Okay, we'll get into X-Men Last Stand later, but like they focus on Wolverine in that movie when that was supposed to be Scott's fucking movie,
yeah.
right? Like, and that's one of my biggest problems. But even though, because technically Wolverine is the main character in Days of Future
Last Stand?
Past.
Oh.
It's more like he's along on a journey, watching the other X-Men do their story, right?
Yeah.
And I actually really enjoyed that, you know? But yeah, Days of Future Past, my number one, easily. Action was amazing. Score was amazing. CGI was amazing. Story was fucking amazing. Just, it's a 10 out of 10 for me.
I like the visuals a lot as well. However, I disagree on the score. I think the score was done better by my number one pick.
Alright, we'll jump into your number one now.
Yeah. Which is X-Men First Class.
Now, I'm not going to fault you on this, because X-Men First Class is fucking amazing.
X-Men First Class was the first X-Men film that showed me the depths of Magneto and Charles Xavier's characters in the way that they should have been explored in the previous X-Men trilogy. It took the X-Men trilogy, the original X-Men trilogy's development of those two characters, and exponentially, like, dramatically increased the tension between these two characters the friendship as well as the rivalry that
Yeah.
exists between them in later years. This is an origin story, as you would think, First Class, but in developing Charles Xavier and Magneto's one of my favorite villains of all
He's
time.
probably the greatest
In
comic
fact,
book
I
villain
consider
of
him
all time, in my opinion. A lot.
I don't even consider him a villain. I consider him an anti-hero.
I
Especially
consider him a villain. I think
well,
there's moments when I watch him or if I read about him and I'm like, I don't blame him for doing that. But when it comes down to it, he is a villain.
Charles Xavier's too much of a goody goody. You gotta do away with those politics. Kill all the humans. Why not?
Kyle, I think that's a little bit tyrannical.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Um,
But Magneto feels justified as a
oh
character.
yeah,
in this, and
easily. He was finally, he was done justice. You got little hints of it in X-Men 1. But it was only like a little bit of a, it was just like a little peek, you know?
Yeah.
You never really got to feel the raw emotion of why Magneto's doing what he's doing. And then when you see, I don't know, I'm trying to think, is there any other superhero movie that made me shed a tear? I think First Class might be the only one. When he has the vision of his mother and Charles and
Yeah.
him have it, I shed a tear when I saw that. It was absolutely fucking beautiful cinema.
And,
I can't think of any other superhero movie.
from an acting perspective, like these two, okay, Patrick Stewart and Ian McKellen are legends in the industry, but somehow Michael Fassbender and James McAvoy just like
Yeah, they brought it.
they elevated it
Yeah.
even slightly higher than those two did.
Yeah. Especially Fassbender.
That brotherly,
Like, I like McAvoy a lot. I think McAvoy's a top grade, but Fassbender, in my opinion, is just fucking...
Michael Fassbender is just such a fantastic actor.
Well, just forget about
Everything he
Assassin's
touches
Creed.
turns to. I was about to say everything he touches turns to gold, but not even Assassin's Creed could.
Not even he could save that.
No.
But, like, remember how I said earlier, X-Men Days of Future Past is the perfect adaptation of a comic to movie? First
Yeah.
Class is the perfect comic book movie. It's the perfect movie for a comic book. It's much more a movie as opposed to a comic, right?
And we got great costumes in it, in my opinion.
Oh yeah,
I did
that was
like
very 60s X-Men.
I
Or not
like
60s,
the X-Men
sorry. What was that, the 70s?
70s,
Yeah.
yeah.
That was before they got the fucking greatest get-up that the X-Men would ever get. So, well, I also like the 2000s get-ups. I know you're not as crazy into them, but that was what I
No.
read when I was growing up for X-Men. So I do like the whole like headpiece on Scott and stuff like that.
I don't.
The worst X-Men that
He looks like a fucking condom.
the worst X-Men uniforms though are easily X-Men 1. X-Men 1's uniforms are absolutely horrendous. Tight leather, man. Don't need that, man.
Did you guys get your suits from Underworld or something?
Fucking, they got the budget to fly a giant ass fucking jet, but they couldn't get them proper suits. Oh my. But thankfully we would get amazing suits in the future movies. So yeah, I'm assuming there are some other things you would like to take note on.
From certain plot points in X-Men First Class, I'll admit, were less interesting than what we saw in Days of Future Past. But the character development is above all else the best we've seen in any of Fox's films, and that's probably like the primary reason I would elevate it so high.
I'll actually agree with that, even though they're not my number one. But I do think that Magneto and Charles, their story in First Class is probably the greatest character arcs, and it's not even probably. It is. It is the greatest character arc out of any X-Men movies.
Yeah.
10 million times better than that of Logan.
I like the warm colors and stuff. Like it really fit
Oh, it was very
the
60s
whole
vibe.
60s or 70s vibe. Yeah,
Yeah.
and directed decently well. It's scripted really well, except for like a couple of points here and there. The villain. We should talk about the villain because Kevin Bacon did a fucking great
Yeah.
job with him. He basically crafts Magneto into the person he originally
Well, he's
becomes.
Frankenstein, right? They even they talk about it during the movie that he is Frankenstein. It is basically a story about Frankenstein's monster. And yeah, he did a phenomenal job as... That's probably the best rendition of the Frankenstein story arc that has been done in other movies. That's probably the best rendition I've ever seen in cinema. Because I truly felt like that guy could create that guy. You know?
Kevin Bacon did really well in this role.
Yeah.
I also liked Rose Byrne. God, she's fucking sexy. But... Get over here.
I'm gonna do like a little animated gif of like you chasing her across the screen.
I'm gonna strip that leather right off you, bitch.
Kyle, I think we went a little too far.
I don't know what you're talking about.
But no.
You can cut that out if you need
She
to.
did a good job too.
But,
she was an Apocalypse as well, but she did a good job in Future Past.
I liked her romantic chemistry with James McAvoy. Like it was subtle, but like they didn't try to force a romance in, if you know what I mean. Like it wasn't like a happily ever after they were trying to establish. So I liked that for her character, particularly seeing how Charles is a character that tries to demonstrate the combination, how society benefits from humanity teaming up with mutants.
Yeah.
And then you see Magneto, who's a character who acts alone, or just with other mutants. Like, the two characters are so true to who they are in the comics, except they even elevate that material to make their characters so dynamic. And it's for that reason that X-Men First Class is the best movie that Fox has ever created in terms of superhero films.
Another thing, I don't think you mentioned it. X-Men First Class saved the X-Men movies as well. They critically were falling apart. I'm not sure about financially. I think they were financially probably not doing as well as they were. And X-Men First Class was what I think gave the head people at Fox more hope with these characters that they could make a great movie. And I don't think we would have gotten Days of Future Past without the success of First Class.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, X-Men Origins Wolverine came out right after First Class. Or was it right before? No, I think it was right before, actually. Yeah, it was. Because they were planning on trying to make a bunch of Origin movies. And they actually had a Magneto movie planned, but because of the failure of Origins Wolverine, they were like, oh, we need to re-scrap this. And then they basically took certain elements out of Origins Magneto and put it into First Class. I remember reading about that.
Oh.
So yeah, any other notes?
Oh, that's pretty much it.
Alright guys, so that's our episode of Distracted Media. Those are our top 5 best Fox movies in life.
I'm kind of curious what you guys would think, honestly.
Yeah,
what are
do you guys agree? Do you disagree? Do you think I'm crazy for not liking Logan? We want to hear your opinions. If you have any comments or anything, yeah, just throw them at us. And as always, like every other YouTuber says, if you want, hit that subscribe or like or whatever. And we hope to see you soon. Thanks for watching, guys.
Yeah, thanks for watching.